Congressmember Jared Moskowitz, we're just days away from the debate between President Biden and Donald Trump. I just had to get your take. What do you expect's going to happen?
Well, I'm wearing exactly what I'll be wearing when I watch the debate from home at 9 o'clock in the evening. Look, I don't know what's going to happen. I think anyone who says they know what's going to happen has not been paying attention to Donald Trump since he entered the race in 2016. We just don't know what kind of Donald Trump we're going to get. Right, the two debates, for the 2020 election. The first one, he was too hot. The second one, he was a little too cold. So we don't know. There's no audience to play off of, which helps Donald Trump. And they've continued to set the bar extremely low for Joe Biden. They did that during the State of the Union. Joe Biden came out there and crushed it. And then, now their newest thing is Joe Biden, he's doing cocaine, or he's taking a Celsius, he's having coffee, or he's getting steroids. I mean, each day it's a new excuse on why Joe Biden came out and crushed it in the State of the Union. And so I think this is going to be, we're going to see, obviously, the two gentlemen on stage. It's going to be a direct comparison. We're going to be dealing with facts as much as humanly possible rather than grandiose speeches. Look, Donald Trump hasn't done this in a while either. He's going out, he's giving speeches, or he's giving friendly interviews. So quite frankly, both of them possibly could be rusty in the very beginning, but it's definitely a must-watch TV. There's a big debate over whether the debates have ever mattered. Obviously, the one with Nixon and JFK mattered. There's no doubt about that. The one with Ronald Reagan definitely mattered. I think this one's going to matter. I really do. In an election that the Republicans have framed that Joe Biden is too old, I think this debate's going to matter.
Well, look, our democracy is old. Our institutions are old, but to date, they have held and they're under attack.
Well, let me say it another way. Here's how you can get comfortable. Moses defeated the Pharaoh and got the 10 Commandments, and he was in his 80s. So,
Here's the thing, though. President Biden goes around the country, though, talking the language of how American presidents have talking about democracy, supporting our allies, supporting NATO, talking policy of what he and pro-democracy Democrats have been pushing, and talking about infrastructure, and giving fairly detailed presentations about what's going on and what's happening. Donald Trump's been going around talking about conversations with Hannibal Lecter.
Great Hannibal Lecter. Dinner with friends. How
he'd rather be electrocuted than eaten by sharks. And, Donald Trump, I watch every one of those speeches, which is an exhaustive task in and of itself. And they're very weird. Like, take a look at this one, Congressmember. Over the weekend, Donald Trump will spend lots of time in the speech talking about things like this. I think here he talks about what a great body he has. And he says, does the audience want to see his shirt off? Just watch this.
And I have the wounds all over my body. If I took this shirt off, you'd see a beautiful, beautiful person. But you'd see wounds all over me. I've taken a lot of wounds, I can tell you. More than I suspect any president ever.
That followed
more wounds than even Abraham Lincoln, and he was shot.
He actually said that. To add to that, he said more wounds than Lincoln and Andrew Jackson, and he thinks he's been treated more unfairly than them. And then before that, he said that he's speaking at the Faith and Freedom Caucus too, which is supposed to be like a religious gathering. He says that he wants to create a league, a migrant fight league, where the UFC fighters will go after the migrants and they can see who's tougher. You mentioned the Nixon debates, you mentioned these debates. We're in a whole weird world though right now where what the heck is that?
Well, look, first of all, I don't need to see Donald Trump without his shirt. I'll take Stormy Daniels' word for it. But yeah, look, he's proposing, UFC style, battles for immigrants. And the sad part is that probably would do pretty well on pay-per-view. And that is the world that Donald Trump obviously lives in, and that is who he's talking to. That is absolutely his audience. But the debates are different, right? This is about being president. There's going to be a level of being presidential, but a word of caution to the Biden team, which is that they can't just sit back and let Trump be Trump. And this idea that he'll self-implode or he won't look presidential, right? Joe Biden has to go out. He has to articulate, what he's done in the last 4 years, but then pivot quickly, in my opinion, to the difference between him and Donald Trump, reminding people what the 4 years under Donald Trump was like, right? The response to COVID, January 6th. They are the two people running. It is cola or Pepsi. I think we can't go, Joe Biden shouldn't spend too much time on all the great things he's done or the legislative accomplishments. I think, he should have some barbs, which is, Donald Trump talked about infrastructure. Every 3 days was infrastructure day or infrastructure week or infrastructure month, and he never got it done. I did get it done, right? And he supposedly builds buildings and puts his names on them. Right? I think he should have moments like that, but it needs to be in a compare and contrast, and he needs to keep up with Trump's energy. There's just no doubt he's got to keep up with Trump's energy because people perceive that as being cognitive. Right? Trump's energy. Like if he says the late, great Hannibal Lecter, but he says it with a lot of energy, people are like, he's with it. And so that's how this is being framed. And I think if Joe Biden does that, I think Joe Biden will do quite fine. I remember when George W. Bush and Al Gore were going to debate, and the narrative was Al Gore is going to wipe the floor with George W. Bush. And when George W. Bush didn't throw up on the microphone, right, people said, oh my God, I think he won the debate. So expectations do matter, right? And they have definitely set low expectations for Joe Biden. I think he needs to come out and he needs to blow that out of the water.
But you talk about the debate between Al Gore and George W. Bush. If you want to talk about the debate between George W. Bush and John Kerry, or Obama and McCain, or Obama and Romney, there was kind of a different degree of style, but they were both speaking the language of American democracy. I think unless Donald Trump is going to come out on the debate stage as a different human being, here's someone who says that the January 6th insurrectionists are hostages who need to be freed, including the Proud Boys, and Trump sings songs with them. Trump praises Vladimir Putin and trusts Putin more than our intelligence agencies. What I think will be unique about watching this, unlike those other examples, is George W. Bush had a certain set of policies, but he was speaking the language of democracy. And sure, he was appealing to constituencies, right? I mean, is there another parallel to a debate where on the one hand, Donald Trump wants to be a dictator, and on the other hand, you've got President Biden who's just talking about the concepts that we've heard about before?
No, listen, of course not, right? We're in uncharted territory, not just with this presidential election, but in politics, period. Right? This is all uncharted territory. The stakes obviously have never been this high. This is not the vice presidential debate where Admiral Stockdale for Ross Perot is going to come out and go, "Who am I? Why am I here?" Which is one of my favorite debate moments, by the way. No, everybody knows these two gentlemen. They don't have to introduce themselves, right, to the public. Donald Trump, one of the most known figures around the world. Joe Biden's been doing this for 50 years. And so I think what they need to do, each of them, they have to prove and disprove. I think that disproving is just as important, right? Joe Biden has to disprove this notion that, he's too old and he's not with it, which I always love, right? Because the Republicans are like, he's old, he's got dementia, but he's a super criminal mastermind with his son, Hunter. Donald Trump's got to show that he's not interested in being a dictator, and he's not, interested in another January 6th. You and I both know he's not capable of those things. So we kind of know Donald Trump's shtick, right? But he's talking to a very small audience. Donald Trump's election is a base election, right? It's about turning out his base. That's why you're hearing J.D. Vance's name thrown around, right? When you hear that, what you really hear is base election, okay? And so if they turn out their base, they believe that is their path to victory. He's not looking to expand. Don't look for him to pivot to a general election audience. That's not what the Trump campaign is doing. Joe Biden has to get people to vote, right? He's got to get people to see the contrast. If Joe Biden's people vote, right, then he's going to win because his ceiling is way higher than Donald Trump's. But Donald Trump's people are coming, and that's why he's only talking to them. So we could see very different messages in the debate.
Well, messages like this. Here's the email that Donald Trump sends to all of his supporters or people on his listserv. I sign up to this thing so y'all don't have to. The Midas Mighty doesn't have to. Here's the message that you get. Is my immunity imminent? No more immunity equals no more America, he writes. Unless I'm given total presidential immunity from the Biden witch hunts, our country will be put in great and everlasting danger. If these radical left traitors get away with stripping my freedom, they'll turn their attention toward their ultimate target, Ben and the rest of the American people. And he says that he should be able to.
By the way, I feel for this Ben. I'm worried about him.
I'm worried about him too. He watches too many Trump speeches and reads too many Trump emails. But Donald Trump is saying that he should be able to order the military to kill his political opponents. That's the argument that was made to the Court of Appeals and to the Supreme Court, and that he would get absolute immunity because that's an official act. And he's leaning into that. I should be able to kill my opponent. How serious is that as a platform of the leader of the Republican Party?
Yeah, that argument was a joke when it was made in the District Court of Appeals in D.C., and it was a joke again when it was made in the Supreme Court. Of course, there's the other side of that coin, right, which is Donald Trump is pledging to put Joe Biden in prison, which he won't be able to do if presidents get total immunity. But yeah, this is all uncharted. We've never seen anything like this. And I'm worried, actually, if you look at the Supreme Court rulings, remember, they're allowed to talk to each other. There's no cone of silence. They're allowed to lobby each other, right? We saw one ruling on guns dealing with bump stocks, where they're letting those again, and then another ruling on risk protection orders, where they found those constitutional, right? The same court. Very interesting, right? What we saw them leave the birth control pill alone for now, by saying they had no standing. I'm worried we could see some sort of partial immunity here, which I think would be fair to official acts, but I don't believe what Trump was doing on January 6th is an official act. And I don't believe what he was doing when he was clearly hiding information from the government and obstructing their investigation to the nuclear secrets he had in Mar-a-Lago is an official act. But look, I'm worried about the Supreme Court, and if Trump would get back into the White House, we're going to have to depend on 3 justices that he appointed to the Supreme Court to hold and keep our democracy, and that's a big dice to roll.
Absolutely. We all have reason to worry about this Supreme Court. Just look at the rulings that they've made already this term. I mean, you take a look at guns, they're ruling on bump stocks. Congress seemed pretty clear when enacted, in my view, in 1986, that machine guns, the definition, trying to anticipate future iterations there too, the various parts and components that make it would seem to be precisely what a bump stock is. But because Congress in 1986 didn't use the magic words bump stocks because they weren't created until the early 2000s that allow a semi-automatic weapon to be used exactly like a machine gun.
We saw the consequences of that in Las Vegas, right? In the Las Vegas shooting, how many people you're able to mow down with a bump stock. And so, this is not some sort of, analysis or some sort of, what if this, what if that. We've seen it. We saw what happens when someone who is mentally ill, right, gets bump stocks, what they can do to people in the public. I thought the Trump administration got that right. Broken clock is right twice a day. I thought they got that right when they banned bump stocks. But the people he appointed to the Supreme Court undid what the Trump administration put in place.
Well, it's kind of what they knew that they were going to do, right? It's hard to give someone credit when, yes, you did the temporary act post Las Vegas to show that you're trying to do something to kind of simmer down the public perception, but then you appoint the people who say, you know what, we're going to make a declaration. Bump stocks are good. Let bump stocks proliferate. And that's where we're at now. And look,
the same people in their hearings in front of the Senate under oath who said, Roe v. Wade is precedent, we're not going to touch it. And then as soon as they got there, it's gone.
Well, I think that shows one of the issues that's key in this election, and as it is in all elections, which is the Supreme Court appointments and confirmations are key. Congressman, thanks for joining us as always. And we hope you come back soon post-debate, and let's chat about what went down.
Thanks, guys.
Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subscribers together. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.